Scourge of the Past is the new raid, yes raid, not raid layer, released with the Black Armory update of the Forsaken Annual Pass. And let me tell you, it's a pretty damn good raid. So with that being said, let's talk about it. The most apparent thing about this raid is the sheer scale of all of the encounters and the areas that you will fight these encounters within. My favorite in particular happens to be the spawn area and the first encounter area, in which you spawn into the actual city and get to drive your sparrow around and climb on skyscrapers and really truly discover the city as it would have been during the Golden Age. Places like shops and different tables and overall just everything seems like it was immediately dropped when either the Red War started or when the darkness started encroaching, and it really creates a sense of an area that was lived in, an area that truly was used by the people of the last city. And it's very apparent that Bungie worked extremely hard to push this point out into the open. The encounter space is truly in beautiful within this encounter, and probably my favorite area within both games of Destiny as a whole. This area just has so much thought put into it, and just it is truly the best area I have seen within Destiny yet. Now, with that being said, you do not stay within the city the entire raid. Instead, the story of the raid goes that you start within the city and then you drop it into the sewers and you have to find an area that has a big bad guy, and you must find Vault Ibisu at the end. So you will travel from the city to the sewers of the city, and then finally you will climb out into a open area of the raid in a crater, and you will find the final boss room, a very open space, very different from the first encounter, and very different from the overall feel of the city, as you are now in a wide open space that is very easy to use your sparrows in, and really feels like it was designed around your sparrows, which is something that is absolutely incredible, and I will get into in a little bit. But we have this incredible open area to fight this final boss in, which is a truly amazing encounter, and another area that feels different and feels cool and new to a raid experience. And this is overall going to be the first thing that you are going to notice when you go into this raid, as it is your new space. This is your scenery. This is going to be everything you're going to look at for the next 6 months until we get another raid in Penumbra. So overall, I feel like this raid has some of the best locations of any raid that we have had so far, and it happens to be my favorite location across both games. Now, a raid, of course, cannot hold up on its own with just the encounter spaces in the areas you are fighting in. It also has to have great mechanics, and this is a raid that actually does have really good mechanics and a great sense of what you are supposed to do. Now, I feel like Bungie took a very different approach when they were designing this raid, because it doesn't seem hard mechanic-wise as Last Wish was, where you had to know every single mechanic to a T and perform those with extreme precision and very, very high skill, where Scourge of the Past feels like it has a much lighter tone, and it's much more reliant on teamwork and cooperation with your team than it is about being a highlight level and making sure that you know every single mechanic, otherwise you're going to wipe. There is many, many areas where you can pick yourself back up after a failed objective, as in you fail an encounter, but you can still fight back, and with the right amount of skill, you can come back to an area where you can save the encounter and potentially still win the fight, as we have been in previous raids. Taken King was one of the few raids where really we saw that if you miss a mechanic, it's brutal. But this is back to Wrath of the Machine style combat where you can still recover from mistakes, and it's an absolutely awesome feeling when you do recover from a mistake that is just completely detrimental to how you guys are playing as a group. As far as mechanics go in the first area, really there's only one mechanic, and that is with the Berserker and the map. So the Berserker is an enemy where you have to shoot it in the back as well as the chest, but you cannot shoot both of these as one player. So you and another teammate have to coordinate and work together to figure out how you're going to kill this Berserker. One enemy has to run behind him, while one of your teammates has to stay in the chest, and you have to hit both crit spots at the same time. Now this drops 2 balls if you are going after the correct Berserker, which you will know the correct Berserker based on the map. The map will spawn in the very center of the location that you are fighting in for this first encounter, and it will show you on the map where all of the Berserkers are, as well as which one has 2 balls inside of him by looking at a giant orange orb above its location on the map. This is going to tell you where to go and how to finish the encounter. Now, this mechanic is brought up a few times within the raid, as it is used later on in the final boss as well, where you must kill berserkers and bring balls to certain locations, just like you do in the first encounter. However, in that encounter, you are also dealing with a final boss. Moving on to the next encounter, we get our first encounter where vehicles are really pushed within this raid. We get a Sparrow Racing League-esque track to run away from a Fireball servitor, and this is probably the most fun encounter across all of the Destiny raids, in my opinion. It is just incredibly fun to run away from a enemy Indiana Jones style like you do within this raid, and it is something that is incredible. Next up, we get a tank encounter, which is, once again, it's super fun to be able to drive different vehicles, and especially a tank, one in which we haven't been able to drive to do damage to a boss before, which I found very, very cool. And the fact that they made it work within a raid space is just really awesome, and I want to see where they could potentially go in the future with this type of mechanics. It's just so cool. And then finally we get to the final boss, which has a pretty cool reveal, as Bungie has been doing as of their most recent raids, where you get the big reveal of the final boss. And in this one we get an Avatar-esque mech from the 2012 Avatar movie with the blue dudes. And it's a cool final boss. It's a hell of a boss to try to fight, especially when you guys are under-leveled, which most teams will be when they are a low power level and going into the raid for the first time. And it's just an awesome fight. I didn't quite get the sense of achievement from this fight as I did when I beat Riven, but I have a feeling this is simply because of the amount of time that I put into Riven, which was close to 3 days straight on that final boss. I wanted that jacket a little bit too much. But anyway, those are the encounters. The final boss, a little bit complicated, which is why I'm not going to explain it right now, but I digress. Now, moving on, I wanted to get into my final thoughts of this raid, and we're going to start with the fun factor of this raid. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, this is the most fun I have had in any Destiny raid to date. Driving your sparrows around is just something that's stupid fun, and for some reason it's just, I don't know, I absolutely love driving sparrows around, especially in high-end content. It's something that I really wanted to do for some reason and just never realized I did until this raid came out. The fact that you get to use vehicles throughout the raid, we've always known vehicles are fun within Destiny, and the raid, it's even more fun. It's just so much fun to be able to use tanks and sparrows. The encounter where you run away from the servitor is my favorite encounter in a raid, even though it's not even a real encounter. It's just stupid fun, and I absolutely love that one. The final boss is cool. It feels like you are fighting a truly powerful enemy, which is in the form of a mech. The encounters themselves are designed absolutely perfectly. It seems like with every new raid that Bungie releases, they get better and better and better. And they found the sweet spot with fun in this raid. It is 100% the most fun raid I have ever played. It's not going to give you the same sense of achievement. It's not going to be that insurmountable mountain that you have to climb. It goes back to the old style of raids. Vault of Glass, Crota, where it's you going through a space and having fun with your friends. And every single encounter is fun, and it really fills that spot. Destiny 2 has needed a fun raid where you can go in and chill with your buddies, and Scourge of the Past meets those requirements perfectly. If you have not done this raid yet, I would recommend leveling up to 625, 630, and going in as soon as possible. This is by far one of my favorite raids ever. With that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. My name has been SRY-in-advance, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.
Hello.
Do your thing.
Yeah, no.
Bırak armory, shield the drones.
He's shoving me around.
Oh!
Holy, what happened?
What? What was that?
What the fuck just happened?
What?
What did you do?
I don't know.
How did you find a phalanx in this raid?
I just